Group and NPR's Latino USA, Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal, and MSNBC correspondent Mariana Atencio. Thank you all for being here. I want to start with the election in Mexico, Maria, because you do have the sort of stereotypical sort of view of AMLO that here comes a new Hugo Chavez. That's the sort of line that you're hearing about him. He is of a socialist, nationalist, sort of populist bent. He's anti-Trump, but so is Enrique Pena Nieto, who's from the PRI, which is the party that's governed Mexico for a lot of the years that the U.S. has been paying attention to it. Do you see, just from your reporting, what would be the substantive difference between a presidency like AMLO's and Enrique Pena Nieto?
I think that there's a sense in which AMLO is not, the perception in the United States is that AMLO is running as this kind of anti-Trump populist, and that's actually not what's happening. Mm-hmm. If anything, AMLO is running as, I'm a Mexican and I'm interested in what's happening in Mexico. And the United States, like you're over there. The interesting things in terms of the relationship and how the geopolitics can change is that Mexico now is going to have international, there are international observers down there now. Let's just say the Mexican experiment in democracy shows that you have more than half of the citizens voting. Then all of a sudden Mexico becomes the reigning kind of symbol of democracy. The United States becomes increasingly isolated, right? Mexico is having relationships all around the world. And what happens in terms of the politic is, does Mexico become the country that says, hey, our economy is growing, we welcome you back if you want to come back, but if the United States, if Donald Trump wants to pick a fight, and basically if that happens, it's in Donald Trump's court, I think Mexico will respond.
Well, and the question I have is, you're seeing all across Europe this reaction against immigrants. In a lot of cases, it's Syrian refugees throughout Europe who are being rejected. It's minority groups like the Roma who are being rejected in Italy. So you have these movements that are all very nationalistic in character and very anti-non-white immigrant, let's be blunt. And that same sort of vibe taking place inside the United States, inside the Republican Party. I wonder if in Mexico, you're going to start to see a reaction, a popular reaction against immigrants when you see the United States potentially putting in place a new plan. There's a new Department of Justice plan being pushed by Jefferson Sessions that would likely stop most Central Americans from getting through Mexico to the United States. It would make anyone convicted of entering the U.S. illegally, it would make them ineligible permanently for asylum. It would make victims of domestic violence and gang violence all banned, which means a lot of these Central American migrants would be banned just de facto. Central Americans would be penalized for not first seeking asylum in Mexico before asking here, and tightening the entire asylum process. If that happens and it pushes more Central American migrants to seek asylum in Mexico, how does that then change the politics for AMLO?
Look, I think it's incredibly complicated. Mexico has had to understand that it is a country that is now receiving immigrants. And it's, by the way, it's not new, okay? So that this is a country, there have been Argentinian, Asian immigrants in Mexico for a long time. But Mexico itself has to kind of do this, like, okay, so now we're a country of immigrants. How are we going to deal with that? And I think that, my immediate thought of how the people of Mexico are receiving the people of Central America, I think of the women who independently in small towns were bagging up little lunches and taquitos and sandwiches and throwing them to the people on the bestia, on the train as they were coming, knowing that these are hungry people seeking refuge. So I think of the people having that response. I'm very afraid, I have to tell you, that when you go to Mexico, what you see in terms of their kind of immigration structure, it so much mirrors the United States.
Yeah.
And this is something, So then is AMLO going to change that? I'm not sure. That train may have left the station, but what is true is that I don't think that AMLO is going to be the one who is picking an immigration fight with Donald Trump. I think it's going to be Donald Trump picking an immigration fight with AMLO. And then there will be a response.
Yeah, absolutely. And Congresswoman Jayapal, let's talk about how this winds up playing out, because you have at the same time